Welcome back to our Android development series. In this video, we're going to go ahead and talk about Android virtual devices and how we can use them to simulate a whole bunch of different Android devices with different screen sizes and different types of different models and different types and even different categories of devices on our computer itself without having to actually collect all of those physical devices to test on. So in Android Studio, if you go over to Device Manager, this will give you a list of all of your virtual devices and also your physical devices. But for now, let's just look at virtual devices. I already have some here because I've created some in the past, but if you haven't, your list is likely empty. So go up to Create Device, and then in here, in this window, you get to pick what category of device you want. So phone, tablet, wearables, desktop, TV, automotive. Go back to phone. And I'll just do maybe a Pixel 5 for now, and then hit next. And this is where you define what API level you want. So in this list down below, if you haven't done this before, probably you have this download arrow next to all of them. And what that download arrow means is that this is essentially an API that you don't have installed on your machine. So you need to download that API so that you can then use that on your virtual machine. So I will just leave mine at tiramisu right now, which is API 33. And we're going to move along with that. But if you don't have that downloaded, you just click this download arrow next to them. It'll give you this pop-up and it'll download that for you. And also, you'll see down here, I have this recommendation. Android Emulator Hypervisor Driver for AMD processors is not installed, and then asks me to install that. Now, it says recommendation. This is a requirement to run your Android virtual device. So if I click on install here and hit next, this will go ahead and run the installer. And when this window pops up, say, yes, we do want to allow this app to make changes to your device, but we're going to have a problem here. If you look closely at the bottom, it says control service failed. Service has not been started. Start service failed with error. And then it gives us error code. So the reason that this is giving this error code is because our virtualization is not enabled in our BIOS. So on most computers, by default, virtualization is not going to be enabled. So I will put a separate video down in the description below. I'll put a link to it for how you can enable virtualization in the BIOS. And then for now, we're just going to pretend, well, I'm not going to pretend, I'm going to go and actually update in my BIOS. And then we're going to move along with this video. But if you're getting the same error and you need to know how to do that, go ahead and check out that video in the description below. And that'll hopefully give you the information you need to turn on virtualization in your BIOS as well. So if we click finish on this, that error is still going to show up because it actually hasn't been installed. So click on, I'm going to set it to API 33, hit next, and I'm just going to name this example Pixel 5 API 33, finish, and then here we have that Pixel phone example Pixel 5 API 33. And again, if I hit run on this, it's going to pop up with that same axiom is required to run on this AVD. Android Emulator Hypervisor Driver for AMD processor is not installed. So I need to go ahead and install that. But before I can install that, I need to modify the BIOS. So I'm going to go do that. And then we'll pick up from there when I come back. I've changed that virtualization setting in the BIOS. You can come back into Android Studio in your device manager, find your example Pixel 5 API 33, which is that new one that I made. And then if I hit the run button next to that, it'll say down here at the bottom of the screen, starting AVD. And then you can see over here in the emulator, it's going to bring that up. And if you look here at this emulator, you have a lot of buttons that you would have on a physical phone. You have them on the emulator as well. So for example, here you see we have a power button, so I can toggle the power on and off. You have a volume button, so I can toggle the volume on the phone up and down. You have a rotate left and rotate right button, which obviously on a physical device is not a button. but you can certainly rotate it with your hands. So you can see I can rotate that both ways with those buttons. And then these three buttons are just your standard Android back, home, and then overview buttons. Here you have the ability to take a snapshot, or not a snapshot, a screenshot rather, of your phone. Here you can record your screen. So if you want to take a short video of the app that you're creating, you can do that. And then here you have your snapshot button. So if you look here, by default, you can see the phone has already come with one snapshot. Now a snapshot is essentially it's going to be a copy of everything that's written to the phone's hard drive and then to memory at the current time. And we use them on virtual devices because it's much quicker to boot a virtual phone to a snapshot than to boot it up from scratch every single time. So if I were to look at the snapshot and boot back to that, it's going to load the exact, essentially the first time I brought this phone up, which is right now, Android Studio is going to take a snapshot of this emulator. So if I were to change this phone and add pictures and music and open up a bunch of stuff, and then I restored to that snapshot, it would delete everything new and it would restore to the exact state from when that snapshot was created. So, and then in here you have your extended controls, which is this this dot 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 over here will bring up your extended controls menu. And in here we can do all kinds of stuff that you want. You see here, my location is set to San Jose in California. But let's say I have an app that I need to test a specific geographical location, maybe Denver right here. So I can set my location here. And if I come back to my phone and open up my maps and skip the sign in, find my location, allow it to use my location. And then you see here, it pulls me up in Denver. And that's because you can set your location for your virtual phone to be whatever you want it to be. And then here you can add displays. You can change all sorts of different settings with your network. Are you on a full network, an LTE network? Do you have a great signal strength, a poor signal strength? How's your voice status? Are you roaming? You can change all that kind of stuff. You can change your battery from 100% to 12% to whatever percent you want, because at times you want your app to behave differently. Say if you have 6% battery versus if you have 100% battery. And then whether you're plugged in or not, you can change that as well. You can change your battery health, all kinds of stuff. You can change your image that appears on your camera. So if you look here on your phone, by default, if you pull up the camera, it'll just allow you to take pictures of this virtual scene that they've created for you, but you can change that in your extended settings. And then you can change some phone stuff, some microphone settings, and then fingerprint as well. So in here, I can create essentially fake fingerprint profiles that I can use to then authenticate with my fingerprint on my virtual phone, just like you would do on your physical phone. So kind of the idea of all of these settings is they're trying to make it so anything you can test on a physical phone, you can also test on a virtual phone as well. Now that we have the AVD all set up, I'll show you how to test it on a physical device as well if you want. All you'll do is take your physical device, go down to your settings menu, scroll all the way down to where it says About, and then at the way bottom, you'll see your build number. All you do is tap on your build number 7 times, and as you're doing that, you'll see this pop-up that says you're now 2 steps, 1 step away from being a developer, and then at the end, you are now a developer. Now if I go back and in my search field, if I just type developer, you'll see I have this new menu here called developer options. And if I go in here, this is just going to be all of the different settings that you can change that are going to be relevant to debugging on your physical device rather than your virtual phone. And then all I have to do after enabling development mode on my phone is just plug that phone in with a cable to the computer, just with the USB cable. And with most phones, that's going to work just right out of the box. But there's a couple phones like Samsung Galaxy, for example, where you have to download an additional driver for your computer to make that work. So I'll put that link in the description below. And now that we have both our physical devices set up and our virtual devices set up as well, we should be able to start actually learning some Kotlin code. So join us in the next video and we'll start off with our Kotlin journey.